Welcome inside Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist and reporter for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. All right, Chris, 2015 Patriots training camp, day number 3, but day number 1 of full pads. Why is it such a big deal for the Patriots to be in full pads for the first time since Super Bowl 49?
Because it's a lot easier when it comes to things like evaluation. You get a lot better sense of who can play and who can't play when you get in pads. You can only do so much evaluation when guys are running around in sweats, t-shirts, without the shoulder pads. So I think this was a huge step in the overall team building process, the process of kind of getting this thing ready, getting them ready for the regular season. It was interesting on a couple levels. There were some guys who were clearly very ready to put on pads. There were some guys who maybe weren't so anxious. But at the end of the day, ultimately, I think it's a good thing for this team. I think they are where they need to be mentally, physically. You get the pads on, you get some hitting going on, it starts to look like real football.
All right, a couple of days ago, a little bit was made of LeGarrette Blount being on the field but not being cleared for team activities as he did not pass his conditioning test. According to the Boston Globe, he was placed on the non-football injury list very temporarily. LeGarrette Blount was in full pads and ready to go, really looking pretty sharp as he was running in full pads here on Saturday at outside Gillette Stadium on the practice fields. Your impression of LeGarrette Blount being back on the field and back with the first team right out of the chute?
I think he looked really good. I think for a guy who was on the practice field for the first time all summer, third day of camp, I think he looked active. I think he looked good. He was making all the necessary cuts. Didn't look like he was any worse for wear. I think that when you look at that running back position, there are a lot of other possibilities. You can look at who's going to serve, who's going to fill a third down role, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, fullback, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Blount is clearly the number one guy, the closest thing they have to a feature back in this offense. He certainly looked like it today.
Well, and I asked LeGarrette Blount about the conditioning tests, and he winked and nodded, and he said, "I was out there, wasn't I?" And that's really all that matters at this point. He also said something interesting to your point about competition, and that is everybody here has shown that they can play at a very high level. We're going to all have to fight for the job. Look, he comes in as the number one running back in camp, but to say the right thing, even as a veteran, as LeGarrette Blount is, he knows that there are a lot of bodies behind him who could step in right away and fill his void, one of which was James White taking some reps with Blount on the first team.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how all of this shakes out, because you have a guy, like I said, in Blount, who's probably the closest thing they have to feature back, but you're not going to see him carry the ball more than 250 times like most teams use a lead running back. You're going to see him start to shake things up a little bit. You're going to see Jonas Gray worked into the mix. You're going to see Brandon Bolden get some touches. I'm talking specifically now between the tackles kind of guys. You look at the third down job, James White, Travaris Cadet, Tyler Gaffney, a possibility there to fill in both roles. So there's lots of possibilities here. We're quick to anoint based on what he did today and based on his past track record here in the New England offense. LeGarrette Blount is the number one back, but at the same time, a lot of different options here, and they're going to lean on a lot of guys in that backfield.
I don't know how you read this, but on the defensive side of the ball, I thought it was very encouraging that Jerod Mayo was not in a red non-contact jersey here on Saturday out of the chute in full pads. He was ready to go. Dante Hightower was not. Also Xavier Dixon, I believe, was also in a red non-contact jersey. But what do you read into the fact that Jerod Mayo was in his normal blue 51 jersey ready for full contact?
It's a great sign for him, both for him and the Patriots defense, because he's a guy, and we've talked about this before, who is not, to my mind anyway, an exceptional linebacker, necessarily a Pro Bowl linebacker, but he does a lot of things really well, and he helps bring together that linebacking core. I think if he stays healthy, Hightower stays healthy, they have a shot with Mayo at being one of the best linebacking groups in the AFC.
Remember last year, late in the season, it was Bill Belichick calling Jerod Mayo one of the best leaders he has ever coached, and that is obviously very high praise for Jerod Mayo, coming out in his, I believe it's 8th year now out of the University of Tennessee. He is a fixture in that linebacking core, and yes, they won the Super Bowl last year without him on the field, but he makes a big difference on and off the field.
He's one of those guys, and you look at this roster from top to bottom as it's constructed now, and you say, oh yeah, Jerod Mayo's on this team, that's right. They get him back, and if he's healthy, again, that linebacking group, we saw what Collins was able to do last year. We saw what a healthy Dante Hightower was able to do last year. You get Jerod Mayo back in that mix. I know their base defense last year, more often than not, was a 4-2-5 mix. You get Mayo back in there, working with Collins, working with Hightower, working with the rest of that front seven. It's a really good-looking group.
Fans who were here on Saturday saw the rookie Jordan Richards, the strong safety out of Stanford, break up a pass intended for Scott Chandler. Why is that a particular note, Chris? Because Scott Chandler has 7 inches on Jordan Richards, but Jordan Richards comes in as a rookie trying to fight for some playing time behind Patrick Young as a strong safety, maybe even on the outside chance he challenges him for the job, but I don't think that's that likely at this point, but who knows. Well, your thoughts of Jordan Richards making that one play on Scott Chandler and what it means going forward?
Richards is a guy who, coming out of college, didn't overwhelm you with the physicals. And we talked about this around the draft. You look at his numbers, you look at his physical attributes, you say, that guy's a second-round pick. I think we saw today one of the reasons why he was a second-round pick. Very smart guy. Yes. He's always in the right place. I remember talking to the Stanford...
Instincts.
Exactly. I remember talking to the Stanford positional coach and saying, he is never not in the right place. He's only got 3 practices in here, but he looked very, very good today. He looked very natural. What you want to see from rookies at this stage of the summer, just don't want him to be overwhelmed. You want him to look natural. You want him to look like they're part of the flow, part of the defense, part of the offense, whatever. Richards certainly appeared to be that today.
Aaron Dobson made a spectacular catch, Chris. What do you make of it?
Dobson was up and down today.
Yeah.
I will say this, though. He did have a spectacular catch. What you want to see from Dobson is if he can maximize his opportunities. Brandon LaFell still on PUP, not on the field. Dobson is getting a lot more looks now than he was, say, at this time last year. It's certainly encouraging for him. He needs to continue to build. He needs what they say, stacking success.
Right.
He needs to continue to build on these performances and put together a really good training camp. He's going to need it when Brandon LaFell comes back.
Brandon Gibson, his #1 competition, you see?
Yeah, probably at this point. Although, really, the default at this point is LaFell. I think, to my mind, it's LaFell's job.
But I guess I meant behind.
Yeah,
Brandon
exactly.
LaFell.
Yes. And Brandon Gibson, I will say this about Brandon Gibson. Gibson showed a real nice cohesiveness today with Jimmy Garoppolo. Garoppolo, really, over the last 2 days, when he's had to look for a guy, not necessarily his first option, and maybe not necessarily the check down, maybe the second option has been Brandon Gibson. He showed a nice chemistry with him, completed a couple of nice passes over the last couple of days.
What a smooth transition. What about the quarterbacks? Obviously, Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo are the only 2 on the field, as Matt Flynn is on NFI. He is not cleared to be on the field. It wasn't cleared to be in the first couple of days of training camp and today for the first full day of padded practice.
Yeah, I think right now it's business as usual for that grouping. I think when you look at Brady, he's taking all the reps, or not all the reps, but most of the reps with the 1s. You see Garoppolo taking some reps with the 2s, getting mixes, kind of mixing and matching occasionally. Nothing out of the ordinary at this point. I know that's really the big overriding storyline. How much time are they going to give Garoppolo, maybe in anticipation of getting him ready for that opener if Brady is not able to go. But over the first 3 days of camp, to my mind, there's been nothing out of the ordinary.
Judge Richard Berman, let's transition into the off-the-field Brady news. Everybody's obviously talking about the settlement conference in New York, in Manhattan, between the NFL, the NFLPA, Brady and Goodell, sitting down August 12th, day before the preseason opener against the Packers here at Gillette Stadium. What do you make of the move by both sides to want to sit down and reportedly avoid the injunction that Brady would have to file to be eligible to play September 10th?
Well, I don't know if they want to sit down. I think that's the biggest thing here. You're using that language. I think that it's encouraging. I'll put it that way, and there's reason to be cautiously optimistic. Because for the first time in this entire process, to my mind, there's a grown-up in the room telling them to say, sit down, work out your problem.
Judge.
Exactly. The judge is the one sitting there saying, look, work out your problem. I don't want to have to make a ruling in this. So I think it's a reason to be, again, cautiously optimistic. You want to see how this thing is going to continue to play out. The next week, apparently, is going to be very, very important in this process. You want to get the 2 sides of the table. You want to get them really engaged in some substantive dialogue. They really haven't had any of that to this point. I think if you start down that road, there's reason to be encouraged about what might end up.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Does this get resolved without it ever reaching a federal court?
No.
Really?
No,
I'm surprised
I
you say
think
that.
as we sit here right now, I think ultimately there's going to be a lot of talk, but given all of the real nuclear language that's gone on over the course of the summer between the 2 sides, I think it's going to take a lot. And I think ultimately there's going to have to be some sort of arbitrator, mediator, whatever in the room with them, whether that's the judge, whether that's someone else, bringing both sides to the table and having them sit down and say, look, let's work out some sort of compromise here. This is the most foolish scandal in the history of the National Football League.
Certainly is.
No one looks good in this process. Brady, the Patriots, the league, whatever. I think they need someone else in the room to be able to bring them together to be able to reach some sort of settlement.
All right, that is a wrap on day number 3 of Patriots training camp here at Gillette Stadium. The weather has certainly cooperated, and Mother Nature cooperates for Bill Belichick, turning up the heat a little bit, getting that conditioning to prime level right out of the chute for training camp 2015 for the Patriots. He is Christopher Price. I'm Mike Petraglia inside Gillette Stadium, WEEI.com.